Boatbuilding News, the podcast. Let's do it. Welcome to Boatbuilding News, the podcast, a series of engaging interviews with key individuals from within the marine industry. I'm excited. This is going to be epic.
Thank you, Holly, for having me.
Really pleased you could make it. So, Rene, relatively new CEO of Exshore. Tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Holly. My name is René Hansen. I was born in Norway, and now I'm situated in Stockholm. As you can see also on the camera, we're finally experiencing some sun after 4 months, and now this Easter, I'm looking forward to get out on our boats with the family now that finally the frozen tundra of the water here has frozen away, or melted, I mean.
Oh, awesome. That sounds so good. I wish I was doing that this weekend. Really cool. So, I mean, you're relatively new at Exshore, but let's go back a little bit. Start to tell me about, your journey and, how you've ended up where you are now.
Yeah, so Holly, like a little bit untypical for most Norwegians who grow up and live in the radius of 30 minutes their whole entire life. I moved to the US at a very young age and was recruited by a company called Airwalk, which is effectively a company together with Vans that created action sports.
I can remember the Airwalk jumpers and everything like that, a fashion brand as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Airwalk was exactly, Holly. It was both a fashion brand and a shoe brand. And they created a category to serve an audience that didn't really exist.
Okay.
And that was a fascinating journey because most part of your life you go through and work for companies that really exist. But this was first 2-3 sports that didn't really exist before, but also street fashion, wearing jeans, wearing hoodies. And what we take for granted today was not something that existed. And being able to learn how to study trends, learn how to design, learn how to produce, learn how to create sales channels that didn't exist in retail was fascinating and invaluable and shaped me very much. And after Airwalk, I moved on to a company called Burton Snowboards.
I know it well.
Which today is, the biggest snowboard company in the world. When I came in, we were probably around $350 million. When I left, we were a couple of $1 billion. And it was fascinating and also challenging in the sense that snowboarding was not allowed on ski hills. So you needed to also convince ski hills to open up the market to snowboarders. And at the same time, the retail was skiers. And they didn't necessarily want to sell snowboarding, but then you need to also convince them how that will actually be beneficial for them, but also create new retail. So that tenacity and grit, I guess, and creativity has, also shaped who I am. After that, I moved on to start a headphone company together with Conrad Bergström, who also created Exshore.
And that's where the Exshore link is.
Yes. And sound industries became the fastest growing Swedish startup in history, and it still is. And today it's called the Marshall Group, and it's headphones. And literally what it was to take our experience from street fashion and action sport and say people want headphones that really matched their clothing. They wanted to they want to express themselves, and then we also put the microphone on the speakers. Which we take for granted today, but we were the first one who did it. And it became very, very successful. But at the same time, I felt that sustainability became more and more important in my life. I just have had my 2 first sons, and then I was recruited by the CEO of a company called Tomra. And Tomra today is the world's largest provider of technology to recycling and also food sorting. They were a technology company, but they didn't really understand their purpose. And their purpose was really to lead the circular economy that no one really spoke about. and be a steward of leading the resource revolution. And that really made the brand take off because government really understood what they were doing and the purpose they served. It helped them recruit. It helped also customer understand what they were really buying into. And we took the company from like roughly 25 Norwegian kroners to 180. And the company is still growing very fastly. And then I moved over to another company, which is the fourth largest company in Norway. It's called Yara. It's one of the biggest agriculture companies in the world. Yara means good harvest. Their challenge was that their input costs, 90% of it was natural gas. And when you compete against American companies, Arabian companies, and Russian companies, that becomes very challenging because you don't have the same, you have much higher cost on the input cost. But what we saw was that the company was really created when we needed to solve the famine problem that Europe had. And Norway was one of the poorest countries in the world at that time, which seems kind of strange today. And they produced fertilizer on hydrogen power. But really what was the point of differentiation from this company was that they had agronomists. And agronomists are really doctors. They do soil samples just like a doctor do a blood sample. They know what kind of nutrients that you're missing in your body, and the same thing with soil. So depending on what type of soil you have around the world, you can create specialty product, which means that you need to use less fertilizer, but you get higher yield and better product to the customer. And that really changed the company. And we grew from 9,000 to 17,000 people. And we increased the revenue with 71%. And we doubled the stock, and the employee engagement rose to be among the top 10% companies on the S&P 500 list. And then I moved over to a Swedish company to do a lot of the same. There was one of the largest private owners of forest, Stora Enso. But when the opportunity came along to move to X-Shore and be a part again of transforming a category that needs transforming from my point of view. Boating is a wonderful thing, and being out on the water with friends and family is a social thing.
It's wonderful,
But when it is not something that is one with nature because it's polluting so much as it does with diesel or gasoline or the noise pollution, then, if I could be a part of transforming that market and transform it to electric so that it doesn't pollute the waterways that you are there to enjoy, and you don't have the noise so that you can actually have a social good time with your family and friends or listen to music and not disturb wildlife underneath the water and above the water. Then I thought that my history and my background, my expertise were perfectly fitted to help the company tap into its full potential. So here I am.
So interestingly, you've not come from your stereotypical marine background or your marine field career. So, I mean, you've come from a sort of an interest of sustainability and sort of coming from that background. But have you had an interest in marine in your sort of personal life? Are you a boat owner? Do you spend a lot of time on the water?
Yes, my parents had boats, so to say, and then being also a surfer, I spent a lot of time in the water as well. And for me, when I also saw how the waterways were polluted, that held me back from also buying a boat myself. I wanted to have a boat, but I didn't feel that it was the right thing when I see, so much oil and gas is going directly into the waterways, but also see how it affects wildlife like, seals or whales, beaching themselves. Not to say that leisure boating is the main concern of that, but still, they're a part of it. So why not just improve it a little bit to help it transform to be one with nature? So that's what brought me here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the perfect marriage of sustainability and your interest in boating. That you couldn't have created a more perfect role or company or space for you to be working in.
Yeah, and I will say that I started probably the 20th of November, and very few times I have been more energized in any role than I have right now. And it's I feel like every day I wake up too late. and I go to bed too early. Because it is, as you know, also extremely difficult, even though you have a lot of good employees and partners out there that support you, and also investors that invest money to do it. But doing a scale up and transforming a category that is also to some way traditional, it takes a lot of grit and tenacity to push through.
I mean, there is a lot of change. You know, the boating industry, you know, the marine industry is a little bit more receptive to sustainable solutions now. But as a whole, you know, the industry, the people in it are naturally quite against change. You know, they put a lot of barriers in place. You know, there has been a sort of resistance because this is how we've always done it. It's quite it can be quite an indulgent industry. And but I do see, I mean, I've only been in it a short space of time in comparison to some, but in the space of time that I've been in it, so the best part of 10 years, it's changed massively from, you know, actual sustainable solutions on offer, but also people's attitude towards actually thinking of sustainable solutions, and, you know, not just as a second choice or anything like that, but, you know, whole entire companies purely creating sustainable solutions like Exshore. You know, they used to be few and far between.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree with you, and a couple of things to build on what you're saying. I will say that looking back at Exshore, going to Düsseldorf, the biggest boat show in Europe, 4 years ago, I think people were shaking their head.
Really?
And thinking like, oh, you know, that is interesting, but that's not going to go anywhere. While in when we were there this last year, the new boat that we're launching, which is the first electric boat that price comparity to combustion boats, but higher performance, won the German Golden Design Award, the best motorboat and best boat award, which is a huge recognition and also proves exactly your point, that the market is also seeing that it is a need for this. And by doing this, you're also inviting new people into boating, because it is a lot of people that maybe or wanted to have a boat, but for sustainability reasons wouldn't want to have it.
Well, you're a
As we
prime
see
example of that.
yeah, and also we see it too very much in Scandinavia, where sustainability is very high on the agenda. You don't look at an electric car maybe only from a sustainability point of view. You look at it also from a cost point of view. It is a lot more reasonable to own an electrical car. It's a lot more reasonable to own an electrical boat than a motorboat, because you know the gas price is very high compared to the electrical price. Winterizing an electrical boat is significantly cheaper.
Oh, really?
And in the future, you know that when you winterize them, they're going to be a part of the grid, and you're actually going to get paid for that in the future as well. And you don't need to serve it as much as you need to do with a combustion boat. And at the same time, since telemetry is over the air, always connected, we can also do all the software updates as well. So what we see now is also that legislation is really kicking into effect as well. And we see now with Como and Garda in Italy, from now you cannot buy combustion boats from 24. You need to buy electrical boats.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and you see it in several lakes in Germany and Austria. You see in Turkey, you see in Spain, and you're starting to see now also the same thing happening in the Great Lakes in the US as well. And actually, the Norwegian fjords, not for leisure boats, but for larger boats, they're not allowing bigger combustion boats into the fjords from 2026. So this is happening quick, and at the same time, what we see is that since the electrical car movement, even though it's some headlines now that it's not growing as fast, is still growing faster than the purchases of combustion cars. The people that has owned an electrical cars know that the compromise is not really there. But the cost benefits are there, and try today to park at the parking station at the Tesco or a supermarket and start your car and like exhaust get into a car with kids in it. People will lose their mind, and that will happen with boats as well, because people's behaviors change. and then people is not just going to accept it anymore. But it will take time. Absolutely, it will take time. But the adoption of electrical vehicles, or cars and planes now, and now boats, will move this faster with the support of legislation. Absolutely.
Yeah, because people's hands are forced, aren't they? If there's a law saying that. But I think if you look at the electrical sort of the electrical vehicle movement, I think some of the barriers that are in place for people not going to an EV are actually only perceived barriers. So I can actually speak from personal experience. I had a normal diesel BMW only up until last year, and actually I could have bought an EV, and with very little research, just going on what people were telling me, I was thinking, where would I charge it? Can I charge it? Will I only be able to drive 80 miles up the road and it will need charging? My journeys will be constantly stop start. And it wasn't until I've now got a Tesla, I realized that those barriers weren't there. And I'd not put enough research into it myself properly and logically to actually realize that it wasn't there. I was just listening to what people were saying, what the industry was saying. And also where is this news coming from? Maybe even the makers of cars that aren't electric.
It's definitely lobbying going on in the market for sure. And to your point too, Holly, is that on our boats, on the big screens that we have, because our boats are really, to your point, Teslas on the water.
Yeah.
It's the highest, newest technology. It guides you to where you need to go and charge. It tells you when you're starting to run low, so you can also tell you where to go when you need to recharge, just like on your Tesla. And if you were to be very unlucky, it goes into save mode and it takes you slowly but surely where you need to go. So the issues are really not there for like 80% of the people using it. And even with boats is also different than cars, because a car you need to sometimes do spontaneous travel. But with a boat, for the most part, you go out and you do some activities and then you come back to the same place and you charge it. And you have everything on an app, and you know that your boat is charged, and there you go. And also with the EV world happening, then the infrastructure providers are coming too. And every marina, compared to cars, you need to put a charger in the middle of nowhere. A marina has electricity already, because all boats and sailboats need it anyway. So it's more about, to your point, removing barriers. And the more, it's kind of like solar panels, to use that as an analogy. If the neighbor has it, it's a pretty big chance that next year or two, 3 of the other neighbors have it. So you will have that exponential growth, because people learn about all the benefits, both to the wallet, but also that you can feel good about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I often wonder if it's moved so quickly in the EV space because of, people looking at it from a financial point of view rather than a sustainability point of view. And, a big driver for me, for instance, for getting an EV was the cost of fuel and the cost of living, and actually I realized that there was, significant financial benefits. Now, I wonder if that is such a driver in the boating industry, because, it's obviously, it's quite a sweeping generalization, but if you're boating, you're probably a little more removed from, thinking, oh, I want to, do it for financial reasons, because you're obviously financially fairly comfortable to be boating in the first place.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I do wonder if that's, why, people would more likely, to consider an EV, but when it comes to a luxury item rather than a necessary one, like a boat for leisure reasons, whether financial, the cost of it is so high up their priorities.
No, I don't necessarily think that. Of course, buying a boat, if you go go down the Maslow's hierarchy, you have, or go up it, you have checked off a lot of boxes by the time you go and buy a boat. So I agree with you. But I think also that means also you are in a position where you probably also start caring a little bit about, have the opportunity and financial space to think about the climate as well.
Yeah.
And also what we see right now, if you look at yachts, our boats are perfect for tenders.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
when you have combustion tenders, you need to fill them up before you go out, and you need to
Hmm.
empty them when you put it back. With an electrical boat, you already have a generator on that boat, so you're just connected. So even the convenience is much higher in that. So in this case, I think what we see as far from all the research that we're seeing with ADL and so on is that legislation is driving it. The electrical car market is driving it
Hmm.
because of behavior. And then at the same time, it is Generation Z, that is also telling their parents that, listen, um, it's just not okay. And that is also, what happened to me. I had some of the same experience as you with cars.
Hmm.
You've been used to, the gas car, diesel or petrol or whatever, and then you get into a Tesla or something like that, and then suddenly you sit in tomorrow's technology, and your user experience is also much better.
Yeah,
And I have
100%.
my car more with me than at the service place, and the cost of it is also better, and the predictability is also the same. So it's just a matter of time. It's not if, it's just
Yeah,
about when. And the
it's about when.
investments also now that you see, this is the same thing that happened in the car industry. Uh, First, everyone sat still and looked at what Tesla did. And it's also challenging for a lot of these boat companies that when they have investors that have invested into a platform or technology they have now, to also take the leap and build something new. And that happened with Tesla. So when Tesla, now BYD in China, has created the market, and the Tesla Y is the fifth most sold car in the world.
Is it really?
Um, Volkswagen says that they're going to have 70% of the cars electric by 2030. And
Mm.
Porsche is doing the same thing. So is it a question? No, but it's just a matter of time. And think about it, in our category, if I was an investor, I would rather look at it like this than based on looking at history. In our category today, it is by 2027, it's going to be 4 million combustion boats in the sizes we offer.
Right.
Look at the business opportunity in that. If I was an investor, I will go, I'm going to invest in X-Shore, not to make money today or tomorrow, but think about the market that's going to be there by 2027.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, you've got to invest in the future, not how we've always done it in the past, and what's worked up until now. Because you're absolutely right. It's not if everybody will change to this new sustainable, electric boating. It's just a case of when. And if you're thinking like an investor, positioning yourself so that you're in the best possible place for when that happens and when it really kicks off.
Yeah, and also knowing that, for example, Extra was the first that launched a high-performing electrical boat. They were the first to also launch an electrical boat with price comparison to a combustion boat.
Yeah.
They were the first to also launch and create a factory with 15,000 square feet of assembly line production with dark green Cicero sustainability stamp. And we can produce around 300 to 400 boats a shift a year. So most of the boat industry, and that is no criticism at all, it's been very successful. But I don't think anyone is thinking about not having assembly line production in cars anymore, because it's really no option.
Yeah. So Exshore, let's talk about Exshore in the here and now. So I was at Boot in Dusseldorf, and the Exshore stand. Oh my goodness! Like, I know that they are sustainable and they're great and they perform well, but they also look incredible. So tell us a little bit more about the range of Exshore boats, because they were really interesting in their sort of modular concept as well. So tell us a little bit more
Yes.
about them.
Yeah, so you're completely right. We have, because also we want to mirror what we see in the car industry. So this whole assembly line ID, and also that you can have modular platform, just like Audi and Porsche has, the 6 and the Macan that they're coming out with right now. we also have modular platforms. So in reality, we have 2 modular platforms, but we have 5 different boats.
Right. Okay.
So we have, the extra one, which is the first boat that is at price comparison to combustion boats.
Okay.
And that was the one that won the German Gold Design Award, the best motorboat and the best boat award. So we are very proud and thankful for being recognized for that. That comes in 2 different models on one platform. At the same time, that one goes 50 nautical miles and do 30 knots. So it's a fast boat and it's
Yeah.
a fun
Absolutely.
boat. It's like driving a sports car.
Wow.
And then you have the Elex, which was the first boat that we created in 2020, which seems like forever ago,
Yeah.
which is an open boat and the boat that actually the founder created personally for himself because he wanted to move away from combustion boating into electrical. And that was the first proof of concept. And on that same platform, the 8-meter platform, we have now also created a pro market, which means that we're going into the professional market. So we have then extra pro open and a cabin. And the pro open is more like an SUV for the water. And we
Wow.
see like nature travels, divers, ski travels, and so on.
Yeah,
They're
I think it was
utilizing
set
this
up for
boat.
diving at Boot, I think, when I saw it. Yeah,
Yes,
it looked
exactly. That
great.
was the one you saw. And it's perfect. I mean, if you're a diver, you care about the water and pollution and
Yeah.
sound. So it makes very natural. And it also works very great at hotel resorts as well. If you have a sustainable resort or say in Maldives, if you have a hotel where you go out to clean the cabins, you don't want to wake up your guests or disturb them with boats. So it's an electrical boat that goes to the cabin instead. And then we have the one with cabin, which actually works as a taxi here in the archipelagos, which is wonderful. So kids are being driven to school every day with
I
them.
saw that actually recently. I was reading an article about that. I mean, what a way to travel to school.
It's a wonderful. And what we see is that what's wonderful about this market too is that the people that buy this and transform their old diesel boats to electric, they receive between 20 and 70% subsidies from the European Union.
Oh,
So
really?
that
Okay.
means that the school boat was, when they calculated the gas price compared to electric and the 57% subsidies they got, it was a no-brainer.
Mm.
And this boat could work at any marina in the world and replace those combustion boats that goes there today because they go in the same pattern all the time. They work on marinas, they go and check big ships and stuff like that. So it's a significant market in this, and it can be at fisheries, they can be at nature travels up in Lofoten in Norway, and so on. So we see a big market also opening up there. And with the subsidies as well, it's a big encouragement. So there we talk about legislation being one of the things that is driving it, Holly.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, all of this makes it sound that logically it is going to be a success. You know, X-Shore is just going to grow from strength to strength. What could go wrong? I mean, what are you looking at and you think to yourself, do you know what? That could be a real challenge for us. And how are we going to overcome that? You know, it can't be all plain sailing.
No, I can tell you that it is definitely not plain sailing. And what I think it is like I think the biggest challenge for companies that are transforming categories or anything these days is patience of investors and the
Right.
speed of legislation. Because we need government to support the transformation, as we saw in the car industry. And then we need also investors in a very tough macroeconomic climate right now to stay with companies like this, to fuel them, to make sure that they get to that potential and deliver upon the potential.
Right.
Because when you're scaling up and you're creating a technology that no one has created before, you're investing in factory, you're building relationship with dealers, suppliers, strategic partners, and all this. You need the lifeline to be able to get to where to the promised land, so to say.
Yeah.
And we are close to getting there due to the support of a lot of people that is buying our product and also investing in the company. And now we also see that the government is also giving us tailwind. So I think if people lose patience with us because we are not able to deliver fast enough, I think that's the biggest challenge right now. Because we see that in general, the boat market is going down in tough macroeconomic climates, but we are growing sales because we are offering something new. And we don't really have a lot of competitors out there right now, and no one has production in place, fully paid, no debt at all. We don't have anything, and a skilled workforce that has done this now for 4 years. No one has done that in this industry in 3 regions.
Right. Okay. So you're in a really good position. You believe in what you do. You know you can deliver. It's just a case of, are people coming along on your journey quick enough?
Yes. And then making sure that we also have investors that are strategic investors that want to be a part of this journey because they know that it is a good way to transform something, but also get a 40% market share of something that's going to be pretty big in the future. And we need, there is also a very good way to get that attention is through having an opportunity to talk to you, Holly. So we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, it's been a brilliant conversation. So I'm going to finish on the same question that I ask every guest on this podcast. And that's, what one quote do you strive to live by that motivates you every day?
That the future is unwritten. That is Joe Strummer. He from the band Clash of all bands.
Oh, right.
And that is like, and the reason why I like it is that you can you can feel blue and think it'd be very tough, but the future is unwritten. So basically what you need to do is you need to continue to believe in your vision, as you very well spoke about, Holly. And then you need to get a band of people that believe in the same vision. That be people that, work in the company, partners, distributors, and investors, and you will get there. Because it is unwritten, and this is an unwritten path. No one has done it before. So we're writing the blueprint right now. So that's what I strive to live by.
I love it. I really do love it. And I can tell that you're enjoying everything you do. You speak about it with such passion.
Absolutely. Every day is, even though it's tough days every day, I can't really find words for one, how grateful I am for the opportunity, and also to be able to work on something so meaningful as transforming a category. Yeah. Not because boating is bad, because boating is good, and people should be more in the nature. But we can do more to make sure that we are one with nature. And the power of silence is quite astonishing.
Yeah, and I mean that's it. I was reading that. I think it was spoken about in, silence. You don't really speak about it, but on your website quite a bit. Yes. And that's quite a powerful tagline, isn't it? The power of silence.
In these days, the power of silence is very powerful, in my opinion. And now living close to the water as well, noise pollution is something that is on top of all of us, on top of what we talked about with the pollution in the water, and being able to change that, and not that other people are doing something wrong, but we can do it this way together. And I think that is the path I want to go in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to following X-Shore's journey, and catching up and seeing more of your boats at the shows that I visit. Thanks
for the opportunity, Holly, and have a wonderful Easter.
Yes, you too. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rene. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then it would be awesome if you could leave a rating or a review. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to us again. See you soon.